The security footage would be deleted within 90 seconds of upload to Vought International's servers, but 90 seconds was enough time for 3 analysts to see it, for one of them to screenshot it, and for that screenshot to hit Reddit before Vaught's algorithm scrubbers could catch it. The image showed a black site facility in Newark, one that officially manufactured pharmaceutical supplies, but actually processed the raw components of Compound V, engulfed in flames that burned green and orange, colors that shouldn't exist in any natural fire. At the center of the inferno stood a figure wreathed in hellfire, a flaming skull where a head should be, chains wrapped around burning leather. The facility's security team, 12 armed guards, all former military, all comfortable with the moral compromises Vought paid them to ignore, lay scattered across the loading bay. Some were charred beyond recognition. Others appeared untouched except for the expressions of absolute terror frozen on their faces, their eyes burned out from the inside. The Reddit post lasted 4 minutes before disappearing. The analyst who posted it would resign the next morning, citing personal reasons, and would refuse to discuss that night for the rest of his life. But 4 minutes was enough. Screenshots of screenshots proliferated. Conspiracy theorists who'd spent years compiling evidence of Vaught's black sites suddenly had confirmation. The image quality was poor, degraded by multiple uploads, but you could still see him, the rider, his skull blazing like a second sun, standing amid the ruins of Vaught's sins. In the apartment in Brooklyn, Billy Butcher stared at his laptop screen, a glass of whiskey forgotten in his hand. He'd been tracking this particular facility for 3 months, building a case, planning an infiltration. Someone had beaten him to it. Someone who didn't care about evidence or exposure or the careful politics of taking down a company that owned half the government. "Huey," he shouted, "get in here and bring Frenchie. We've got a problem." The problem wasn't that someone had hit a Vought black site. The problem was that whoever did it had left 12 corpses and walked away without leaving a single exploitable piece of evidence except that damned photo. No blood. No DNA, no bullet casings, just ash and hellfire and the kind of collateral damage that made even Butcher pause. Huey Campbell stumbled into the room, laptop clutched to his chest. "I saw it. Everyone's seeing it. Twitter's exploding before the tweets get deleted. People are calling it a gas explosion, a soupy fight, It's not a soup," Butcher interrupted. He zoomed in on the figure in the screenshot, enhancing it until the pixels broke apart into meaningless blocks of color. But even degraded, you could see that the fire wasn't coming from the figure. The fire was the figure. "Soup-s burn. I've killed enough of the cunts to know. This is something else." Frenchie appeared in the doorway, behind him. Both men stared at the screen. Frenchie whistled low. "Mon ami, that is not Compound V. I have seen what Compound V does to human tissue. I have synthesized it, refined it, weaponized it. That," he pointed at the burning skull, "that is not science." "Then what is it?" Huey asked. Nobody answered, because none of them had an answer that made sense. Vought International had spent decades convincing the world that superheroes were the pinnacle of human achievement, that Compound 5 was the only path to power, that gods walked among men wearing capes and corporate sponsorships. The figure in that photograph wasn't a god. It was something older, something that predated Vaught's carefully constructed mythology. Pulled out his phone, already making calls. "I got contacts at NYPD. They're reporting the same thing at the scene. No evidence except ash. Fire department says the flames burned at temperatures that should have melted steel, but the building's infrastructure is intact. Just the people burned. Just the guilty." "How do you know they were guilty?" Huey asked. Butcher turned to look at him and his expression was grim. Because whoever did this targeted a black site that processes Compound V from involuntary test subjects. Everyone in that building knew exactly what they were part of, and someone just made them pay for it. The question wasn't whether they'd hunt this killer. The question was whether they could afford not to. Because if someone was out there executing Vought personnel with prejudice, that someone might be the weapon the boys had been searching for, or they might be something worse than Vought ever was. Either way, Billy Butcher was going to find them. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. This is going to be one hell of a ride. The rider's motorcycle stood in an alley 3 blocks from the burning facility. Chrome and steel transformed into something that pulsed with orange light, its engine growling like a caged animal. Johnny Blaze's hands, human hands now, the transformation faded, gripped the handlebars, knuckles white. 12 souls judged, he whispered to the night. 12 sins burned away. The spirit of vengeance stirred inside him, satisfied but not sated. It could taste the corruption in this city, thick as smoke. This world reeked of sin disguised as heroism, of evil wearing a smile for the cameras. The spirit wanted more. It always wanted more. And Johnny Blaze, who'd spent years fighting the demon inside him, couldn't argue this time. Because, for once, the spirit was right. The trail went cold for 36 hours. Then a penthouse in Tribeca exploded in green hellfire, and Madeline Stillwell's private server, the one containing blackmail material on every politician, celebrity and corporate executive Vought, had compromised over 20 years, uploaded itself to WikiLeaks before the flames consumed the hardware. Butcher read the news on his phone while standing outside the smoldering building. Police had cordoned off the block, but he'd flashed fake FBI credentials and talked his way past the perimeter. The penthouses belonged to Vought executives, mid-level managers who handled the company's dirtiest work. 3 of them were dead. The 4th, a woman named Rebecca Santos, who'd personally overseen the distribution of Compound 5 to militia groups in South America, was alive but catatonic. Her eyes burned black, muttering the same phrase over and over. I saw them. I saw them all. Everyone. She's talking about her victims, Huey said quietly. He'd followed Butcher inside, moving with the nervous energy of someone who knew they were breaking multiple laws. That's what people keep saying. The survivors, the ones who didn't burn, they all say the same thing. They saw everyone they'd ever hurt. Butcher knelt beside a blast pattern on the marble floor. The fire had burned in a perfect circle, consuming everything within its radius, but leaving the surrounding area untouched. In the center of the circle, etched into the stone by heat beyond measure, was a symbol, a flaming skull wrapped in chains. He's marking his kills, Butcher said. Wants everyone to know he was here. Wants Vought to know. Or he doesn't care about hiding anymore, suggested. He stood by the window, photographing the scene with a camera that couldn't be remotely wiped. Man's not trying to stay under the radar. He's making a statement. Frenchie emerged from a back room, latex gloves covered in soot. No conventional accelerants, no chemical signatures. The fire marshal is confused because the burn patterns suggest the flames originated from inside the victims, not from an external source. One of them, the head of security, his heart exploded from internal combustion. The medical examiner is calling it spontaneous human combustion, which is, how do you say, complete bullshit. Magic, Huey said. Everyone turned to look at him. He shrugged defensively. What? We've seen supes who can fly, shoot lasers from their eyes, phase through walls. Why is fire from hell harder to believe than corporate manufactured superpowers? Because Compound Phi is science, said. Fucked up science, but science. We can understand it. counter it, weaponize it. Magic, that's a different game entirely. Butcher stood, dusting off his coat. Don't matter what we call it. What matters is that this bastard is doing what we've been trying to do for years, actually hurting Vought where it counts. Not the cape-wearing puppets, the infrastructure, the real villains. So we find him and do what? Huey asked. Recruit him? Point him at Homelander and hope for the best? We find him and figure out what the fuck he wants. Because vigilantes like this, they don't stop with middle management. They escalate. And when he comes for the seven, the whole world watches. Finished. And either he wins, which changes everything we know about Soupies, or he loses, and Vought turns him into a cautionary tale about what happens when you challenge heroes. A police radio squawked nearby. Butcher's stolen credentials had bought them 20 minutes inside the scene, but time was running out. He moved toward the exit, his team following. But he paused at the door, looking back at the symbol burned into the floor. The flaming skull stared back, implacable and eternal. He's not going to stop, Butcher said quietly. And neither are we. 3 hours later, Frenchie's algorithms found the pattern. Vought black sites, private residences of executives involved in Compound V distribution, storage facilities for sensitive materials, all hit within a 72-hour window. 23 dead. 47 survivors driven insane by whatever they'd seen, and every single target connected to Vaught's most classified operations, the ones involving human experimentation, forced medication of civilians, and the disposal of failed soups whose powers manifested in unmarketable ways. The killer was working from a list, and somehow, impossibly, that list was accurate. More accurate than anything the boys had compiled in years of investigation. How does he know? Huey asked, staring at the map Frenchie had generated, pins marking each attack site. They formed a spiral pattern, moving inward toward Manhattan, toward Vought Tower. We've spent years gathering intel, and half our targets turn out to be dead ends or decoys. This guy hits 23 locations, and they're all legitimate. Perhaps he can smell sin, Frenchie said, only half joking. Like a hound of hell tracking the scent of corruption. Shook his head. That's not how anything works. He's got intel from somewhere. Maybe a Vought insider, maybe... The lights in their hideout flickered, then died. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. And in that crimson glow, they heard it. The rumble of a motorcycle engine that sounded like distant thunder, growing closer. Butcher's hand went to the Glock at his hip. Everyone armed, now. They drew weapons, positioned themselves tactically. Huey fumbled with his pistol, hands shaking. The engine sound grew louder, impossibly loud, until it seemed to vibrate through the walls themselves. Then it cut off abruptly, leaving silence more oppressive than the noise. Footsteps, heavy boots on concrete, walking slowly, deliberately, up the stairs to their second-floor hideout. No attempt at stealth, no concern for the armed men waiting above. The door burst open in an explosion of splinters and hellfire, and there he stood, Ghost Rider, his skull blazing like a miniature sun, chains wrapped around his torso and hanging from his clenched fist, leather jacket smoldering with embers that never quite went out. "You hunt the guilty," the rider said, his voice a chorus of the damned, echoing with the screams of everyone he'd ever judged. "So do I." 4 guns pointed at his head. He didn't flinch. "The question is," Ghost Rider continued, his empty eye sockets somehow staring directly at Billy Butcher, "are you innocent?" The penance stare lasted 3 seconds. For Billy Butcher, it felt like 3 lifetimes. He saw Becca, his wife, smiling at him in their kitchen. Then he saw her face crumble as Homelander violated her, and he saw himself arriving too late, always too late. He felt his rage transform into a weapon, and he felt that weapon cut through everything in its path, guilty and innocent alike. The drug dealer he'd beaten to death for information about Compound V suppliers, the man's crime nothing more than being in Butcher's way. The Vought employees who'd died in explosions. The boys had set, some of them secretaries and janitors who'd simply needed jobs. The lies he'd told Huey, manipulating the kid's grief and trauma to forge him into a tool for vengeance. Ghost Rider released him and Butcher collapsed to his knees, gasping. The gun had fallen from his hand. Tears streamed down his face, tears he hadn't shed since Becca's disappearance, tears he'd thought himself incapable of anymore. "You are not innocent," Ghost Rider said, his flaming skull tilting as if examining a particularly interesting specimen. "But you are not guilty enough to burn. You kill the wicked. Your sins are in service of justice, not pleasure. The spirit of vengeance recognizes intent." MM helped Butcher to his feet, his own gun still trained on the supernatural entity that had just violated their leader's mind. "What the fuck was that?" "The penance stare," Ghost Rider replied. "It forces a person to experience all the pain they've inflicted on others. Most cannot survive it. Those who do are never the same." He turned his attention to the others. "You may lower your weapons. I did not come to kill you. I came because you fight Vought International. And Vought International is guilty of sins that demand judgment." Huey, remarkably, was the first to lower his gun. "You're not a soupy. You're not Compound V. What are you?" "I am the spirit of vengeance. I am the Ghost Rider. I am damnation given form, the price of evil made manifest. This world calls its villains heroes and worships them on television. This world builds churches to corporate greed and calls it entertainment. The guilty hide behind cameras and contracts, believing themselves untouchable." The flames around Ghost Rider's skull intensified. "They are not untouchable." Butcher found his voice, though it came out raw. "You're going after the Seven. I'm going after everyone who has used power to harm the innocent. Vaught's executives, the politicians they've purchased, the scientists who perfected Compound 5 on unwilling subjects, and yes, the Seven, especially the Seven." Frenchie stepped forward, curiosity overcoming fear. "How did you find us?" "I followed the scent of purpose. In this city of performative heroism, you five burn with genuine intent, flawed intent perhaps, violent intent. But you actually wish to stop the evil, not profit from it. That makes you useful." "Useful?" MM bristled. "We're not your personal hit squad." "No. You are men who understand that true evil wears a cape and smiles for photographs. Men who have tried to expose Vought through conventional means and failed because this world no longer believes in truth when lies are more entertaining. But they will believe in me. They will believe when Homelander faces judgment on live television." The room went silent. Butcher's mind raced through possibilities, strategies, traps. This thing, this Ghost Rider, was offering them everything they'd wanted. A weapon that could actually harm Homelander. A force that Compound 5 couldn't stop, that Vaught's lawyers couldn't protect against. But the penance stare still echoed in his skull, and he remembered seeing himself through the eyes of everyone he'd hurt. "You can't just murder the Seven," Huey said. "I mean, legally you can't. They're protected by... I do not recognize human law. I answer to a higher authority." Ghost Rider's chains rattled as he moved toward the window, looking out over New York City. This world is built on a lie. The lie that Compound V creates heroes. But heroes are not manufactured. Heroism is not a commodity. And those who abuse power in heroism's name deserve the same judgment as any tyrant. "So what's the play?" Butcher asked, his voice steady again. The tears had stopped, but the weight of what he'd seen, what he'd felt, remained. You walk into Vought Tower and start burning people, because that ends with every soupy in America hunting you down. Let them hunt. I have been hunted before, by demons, by angels, by things your world has no names for. Vaught's manufactured superheroes do not frighten me. They should, said. Homelander alone could level this city if he wanted to, and if you back him into a corner, if you threaten everything he's built, he'll want to. Ghost Rider turned back to face them, and for the first time, something almost like respect flickered in those empty eye sockets. Then perhaps it is fortunate that I do not face him alone. You know Vaught's systems. You know their vulnerabilities. You know which soups are truly evil and which are simply trapped by contracts and fear. You want intel, Butcher said. I want justice. You can provide the path to it. Frenchie laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. He wants us to help him kill Homelander, the man who can fly faster than sound, who can see through walls, who is functionally invincible. And our new ally is a flaming skeleton who rides a motorcycle. I've faced gods, Ghost Rider said simply. Homelander is not a god. He is a man given power without wisdom, strength without compassion. He is what happens when the guilty are called heroes, and he will burn. Butcher met those empty eyes and saw something he recognized, absolute conviction. No doubt, no fear, no compromise. It was the same thing he saw in the mirror every morning, but purified, distilled to its essence. This being didn't hate Homelander because of personal loss. It hated him because of what he represented. Evil wearing a cape, sin dressed as salvation. All right, Butcher said, but we do this smart. Homelander's got fans, corporate backing, government protection. You kill him on live TV, you need to make sure the world sees him for what he really is first. Otherwise, you're just a monster killing America's greatest hero, and Vought spins you into the biggest terrorist threat since 9/11. Then we expose him first, Ghost Rider agreed. We've been trying to expose Vought for years, Huey said. They control the media. They bury stories, kill witnesses, buy off anyone who can't be intimidated. They cannot bury hellfire, Ghost Rider replied, and the dead cannot be intimidated. Holstered his weapon. This is insane. We're actually planning a strategy with a demon from hell to kill the most powerful soupy on Earth. Not a demon, Ghost Rider corrected, a spirit of vengeance. There is a difference. Demons corrupt. I judge. Semantics, Frenchie muttered. Very hot, very angry semantics. Butcher walked to his computer, pulling up files the boys had compiled on the Seven. We hit Vaught's infrastructure first, expose their experiments, release evidence of Compound V's real origins, that it's forced on babies, that most recipients die or go insane, that heroes are manufactured products, not chosen ones. We make the public question everything they've been told. Then, when Homelander's image is cracked, when people are ready to believe he's not what he seems, then I show them the truth, Ghost Rider finished, in flames and judgment. It was the beginning of a partnership that would shake the world. The boys, who'd spent years fighting Vought through information warfare and surgical strikes, and the Ghost Rider, who judged sin with supernatural fire. Together, they would force America to confront an uncomfortable question. What if everything you've been told about heroes was a lie? And what if the real monster was the one you'd been worshipping all along? The first domino fell at a Vought pharmaceutical plant in New Jersey. Not one of the classified black sites, those were already burning, but a legitimate publicly traded facility that officially produced wellness supplements and experimental treatments for chronic illness. The boys had known for months that the facility was actually manufacturing Compound V for international distribution, but they'd never been able to prove it. Corporate lawyers had blocked every investigation, and the few inspectors who'd gotten inside had found nothing but sanitized laboratories and carefully coached employees. Ghost Rider didn't need proof. He could smell the guilt. The security footage from that night would circulate on the dark web for years, though Vought would spend millions trying to scrub it from existence. It showed the rider's motorcycle crashing through the facility's front entrance at impossible speed, flames erupting from the bike's wheels and engine. Guards opened fire with assault rifles. The bullets passed through Ghost Rider harmlessly, their trajectories bending around him as if the flames generated a field that reality itself respected. Then the penance stare began. One by one, guards and facility managers fell to their knees, screaming as their sins consumed them from within. A researcher who'd falsified safety data on child test subjects clawed at his eyes until they bled. The facility director who'd personally ordered the execution of 73 failed Compound V recipients combusted from the inside out. His screams cut short as hellfire consumed him entirely. But Ghost Rider didn't just kill the guilty. He destroyed the evidence of their sins, or rather, preserved it. Before the flames consumed the building, he downloaded every file from their servers onto physical drives, which he delivered to the boys wrapped in chains that still smoldered with residual heat. Huey spent 16 hours reviewing the files. What he found made him physically ill. Vought hadn't just been manufacturing Compound V, they'd been testing it on populations who couldn't fight back. Orphanages in Eastern Europe, psychiatric facilities in Southeast Asia, prison populations in South America. The survival rate was 12%. The other 88% died in agony or developed horrific mutations that required immediate termination. "They've killed thousands," Huey whispered, staring at spreadsheets that reduced human lives to test subject numbers and cost-benefit analyses. Thousands of people, children, and they just buried them. Mass graves in countries with corrupt governments who took bribes to look the other way. Butcher leaned over his shoulder, reading, his jaw clenched. "Release it. All of it. Every news outlet, every conspiracy website, every platform Vought can't immediately shut down. We flood the zone. They'll claim it's fake," MM warned. "Deep fakes, propaganda from foreign adversaries trying to undermine American heroes. Vaught's PR team will spin this." "Let them try," Ghost Rider said from the corner of the room, his flames dimmed to a low burn that cast dancing shadows on the walls. In this form, partially transformed, Johnny Blaze's features were visible beneath the skull, human eyes burning with orange light, skin cracked like cooling lava. The public can be lied to, but when the Seven respond, when Homelander defends Vought on television, I will be watching, and lies burn just as surely as flesh. Frenchie coordinated the release. By dawn, Vaught's darkest secrets were spreading across the internet faster than their algorithms could contain them. Major news outlets received encrypted packages with verified source documents. WikiLeaks got a complete database dump. Anonymous accounts on Twitter, Reddit, and TikTok began posting evidence in coordinated waves, each revelation more damning than the last. By noon, Vaught's stock had dropped 18%. By evening, protests had erupted outside Vought Tower. Parents of children who'd disappeared into foster care systems were demanding answers. Foreign governments were launching investigations, and the Seven were scheduled for an emergency press conference at 8 p.m. Eastern. The boys watched from their hideout as Homelander took the podium, his perfect smile fixed in place, his cape rippling in a breeze that seemed choreographed by the universe itself to make him look heroic. Behind him stood the rest of the Seven, Queen Maeve looking uncomfortable, the Deep visibly nervous, A-Train checking his phone, Black Noir silent and still, Starlight her face carefully neutral. The allegations circulating online are completely false, Homelander began, his voice carrying that practiced blend of authority and approachability that had made him America's sweetheart. Vought International would never engage in human experimentation. These documents are forgeries created by enemies of truth, enemies of heroes, enemies of America itself. We are investigating their source, and when we find those responsible, they will face justice. Ghost Rider watched from the window, his skull blazing brighter. He lies so easily, as if truth is negotiable, as if sins can be erased with the right words. That's the whole game, Butcher said. Vaught's been lying for decades. They're good at it, better than anyone. On screen, a reporter raised her hand. Mr. Homelander, how do you explain the source documents? They contain internal Vought codes, executive signatures, classified project names. Multiple independent analysts have verified their authenticity. Homelander's smile never wavered, but something flickered in his eyes, something cold and dangerous that the cameras almost didn't catch. We live in an age where anything can be fabricated. Deep fakes, digital manipulation, AI-generated documents. Our enemies are sophisticated, but the truth is simple. Vought saves lives. The Seven save lives. And we will not be intimidated by a smear campaign from terrorists. Terrorists, MM repeated. There it is. That's their play. They're going to paint anyone who believes the evidence as anti-American. Ghost Rider's chains rattled. It doesn't matter what he says. What matters is what he's done. And soon the whole world will see. Another reporter stood. There's been a series of attacks on Vought facilities over the past week. 23 people dead, dozens more hospitalized with severe psychological trauma. Eyewitnesses describe a figure wreathed in flames. Is this connected to the leaked documents? Is someone targeting Vought? Homelander's expression hardened. We're aware of these terrorist attacks. Make no mistake, that's what they are. Terrorism. Some psychopath with powers is targeting innocent Vought employees, murdering them in cold blood. We will find this individual, and when we do, they will face the full force of American justice. He just declared war on you, Huey said quietly. Good, Ghost Rider replied. His skull turned to face them, fire dancing in empty sockets. Let him come. Let all of them come. The guilty always believe themselves untouchable until the moment judgment arrives. Homelander has spent years being told he's invincible, that he's a god among men. He's never faced something he cannot kill, cannot intimidate, cannot control. The press conference continued, Homelander fielding questions with practiced ease, turning every accusation into an attack on heroes, every piece of evidence into enemy propaganda. Vaught's media machine was working overtime, flooding social media with counter-narratives, bot accounts dismissing the leaks as conspiracy theories, paid influencers defending the Seven. But something had shifted. The documents were too detailed, too verifiable. Former Vought employees began coming forward anonymously, confirming details. Foreign governments demanded explanations. And underneath Homelander's perfect facade, cracks were beginning to show. When the press conference ended, Homelander's final words hung in the air like a threat. To whoever is responsible for these attacks, I have a message. You cannot hide from us. You cannot win. We are the Seven. We are heroes. And we always win. Ghost Rider stood, his transformation completing, flesh burning away to leave only the flaming skull. Heroes do not win through fear. Heroes do not win through lies. And those who call themselves heroes while committing atrocities in the shadows are not heroes at all. They are simply villains who have not yet been judged. He moved toward the door, chains dragging across the floor. Where will Homelander be tonight? Butcher checked his laptop, accessing feeds from Frenchie's network of surveillance taps. He's got a scheduled appearance at a charity gala. Vaught's hosting it. Heroes for Children fundraiser. Public relations damage control. They'll have him shaking hands, kissing babies, reminding everyone why they love him. Perfect, Ghost Rider said. Then tonight, in front of cameras and witnesses, I will show them what he truly is. I will make him face the penance stare, and the world will see every innocent life he's taken, every sin he's committed, every person he's hurt. His lies will burn away and only the truth will remain. He'll fight back, warned, and when he does, people will die. Collateral damage, innocent bystanders who just wanted to attend a charity event. Ghost Rider paused at the door. The innocent will be protected. The spirit of vengeance does not harm those who have not earned judgment. But Homelander has earned what's coming. After he left, the room fell silent except for the distant rumble of his motorcycle fading into the New York night. The boys looked at each other, each processing what they'd just agreed to facilitate. They'd spent years trying to expose Vought through legal means, through evidence and testimony. And now they'd partnered with a supernatural entity who planned to judge America's greatest hero in front of the entire world. We can still stop this, Huey said. Call it off. Find another way. Butcher shook his head. There is no other way. We've tried everything else. And every day we wait, Vought kills more people. Homelander hurts more innocents. At some point, you have to stop gathering evidence and start delivering justice. Justice, Frenchie repeated. Is that what we're calling it? Sending a demon to attack a charity gala? He's not a demon, Huey said. He's something else. Something that actually cares about right and wrong. When was the last time we met someone with power who cared about that? began preparing equipment, weapons, contingency plans. We'll be there, at the gala. When it goes down, when Ghost Rider confronts Homelander, we'll evacuate civilians, document everything, make sure the truth gets out. This goes sideways. We need to be ready. Butcher nodded. And if Homelander kills him? If he actually can? Then we're back where we started, said, fighting an invincible monster with nothing but rage and determination. Story of our lives, Butcher muttered. But as they prepared for the coming confrontation, each of them carried the same unspoken hope. That maybe, just maybe, Homelander wasn't as invincible as he believed. That maybe there were things in this universe that Compound V couldn't overcome. That maybe the guilty could actually face judgment for once. And in a penthouse across the city, Homelander stood alone, staring at his reflection in floor-to-ceiling windows. His perfect face, his perfect costume, his perfect lie. He'd spent his entire life being told he was superior, special, worthy of worship. And he believed it. He had to believe it. Because if he wasn't a god, if he was just a man given power through corporate experimentation, then everything he'd done, every person he'd killed, every innocent he'd let die, every moment of cruelty and rage made him a monster. He would not accept that, could not accept that. So when this flaming skull came for him, when this terrorist tried to judge him, Homelander would show the world what happened to those who challenged gods. He would show them that heroes always win, even if they have to destroy everyone who says otherwise. The Heroes for Children Gala took place in the grand ballroom of the Lexington Hotel, a monument to excess where champagne cost more per glass than most Americans earned in a day. 800 guests in designer gowns and tailored suits mingled beneath crystal chandeliers, their phones out, capturing selfies with the Seven. Vought had spared no expense. Ice sculptures in the shape of superhero logos, a 20-piece orchestra, waiters carrying trays of hors d'oeuvres that had been flown in from Paris that morning. Homelander worked the room like a politician, his smile never faltering, his handshakes firm but not crushing. He posed for photos with children from the Make-A-Wish Foundation, signed autographs on merchandise that Vought would auction for charity, keeping 60% for administrative costs, and gave an interview to Entertainment Tonight about the importance of giving back. Every word scripted, every gesture calculated, the perfect American hero doing his patriotic duty. He didn't notice the temperature drop 5 degrees. Queen Maeve noticed. She stood near the bar, nursing her third whiskey, and felt the cold settle into her bones like a premonition. Something was wrong. The feeling reminded her of the plane Homelander had let crash, killing everyone aboard because saving them would require admitting weakness on camera. She'd felt this same dread then, watching him make the calculation, seeing the moment he chose his image over innocent lives. "You feel it too," A-Train said, appearing beside her with his characteristic speed-induced blur. He was sweating despite the cold, his eyes darting around the room. "Something's coming. Something bad." "It's probably nothing," Maeve lied. "Just paranoia after the leaks." But it wasn't paranoia. The lights flickered. Conversation died as guests looked up at the chandeliers, their crystal pendants swaying despite the absence of wind. Then the doors at the far end of the ballroom blew open, and hellfire poured through like a living thing. Orange and green flames that moved with purpose, searching. Ghost Rider entered on foot, his motorcycle parked outside where it terrified valets and guests fleeing into the night. His skull blazed like a star, chains dragging behind him across marble floors that cracked under the heat. He walked slowly, deliberately, giving everyone time to see him, to photograph him, to understand that something beyond their comprehension had arrived. Screaming erupted. Guests fled toward exits, trampling each other in their panic. But the flames didn't chase them. The fire parted around the innocent like Moses parting the Red Sea, allowing them passage while creating a burning barrier between Ghost Rider and his true target. Homelander stood at the center of the ballroom, his expression transforming from confusion to rage. You're the terrorist who's been attacking Vought." "I am Judgment," Ghost Rider replied, his voice carrying across the ballroom despite the chaos, amplified by the screams of the damned that always accompanied his words. "I am the price of your sins made manifest, and you, Homelander, have committed more sins than any man should bear." The remaining members of the Seven moved to flank their leader. Maeve drew her sword, though her hand trembled. A-Train positioned himself for a speed attack. Black Noir produced throwing knives. The Deep looked desperately for an exit, finding none that didn't lead through hellfire. Starlight stepped forward, her hands glowing with bioelectric energy. "Stop. We don't have to fight. Whatever you think Vought has done." "I don't think," Ghost Rider interrupted. "I know. I have judged the guilty. I have burned the wicked. And now I will show the world what their heroes truly are." He pointed at Homelander, and the flames surged higher, forming images in the fire, a burning projection screen showing horrors pulled from memory and sin. Flight 37, the plane Homelander let crash. Madeline Stillwell's face as he murdered her. The compound in Central America where he'd massacred an entire village because one insurgent had been hiding there. Stillwell's son, traumatized by what he'd witnessed, every casual cruelty, every abuse of power, every moment Homelander had chosen his image over human life. The few remaining guests, reporters, social media influencers, people too shocked or too stupid to flee, captured everything on their phones. This footage couldn't be buried. It was uploading in real time to platforms Vought couldn't immediately control, spreading across the internet faster than algorithms could contain it. Homelander's face twisted with fury. "Those are lies, CGI, deepfakes. This terrorist is manipulating you all." The flames do not lie, Ghost Rider said. They show only truth, only sin. And you, Homelander, are drowning in both. Homelander's eyes glowed red. I'm done playing nice. The heat vision lanced across the ballroom at impossible speed, twin beams of concentrated energy that could cut through steel, through concrete, through anything mortal. They struck Ghost Rider's skull dead center, exactly where a human's eyes would be. The flames absorbed the energy harmlessly. Ghost Rider didn't even flinch. Impossible, Homelander whispered. Your power is manufactured, Ghost Rider said, walking forward through the dissipating heat vision. Mine is earned through countless sins judged, countless souls weighed. You are strong, Homelander, but strength without righteousness is just another form of weakness. Homelander flew at him, fist pulled back for a punch that could demolish buildings. He moved faster than sound, faster than sight, his compound V-enhanced body a weapon Vought had spent millions perfecting. The punch connected with Ghost Rider's jaw, and the ballroom shook from the impact. Ghost Rider's head snapped to the side. Then slowly, inexorably, he turned back to face Homelander. The skull was unmarked, undamaged, still burning with that terrible, patient fire. Is that all? Ghost Rider asked. From the ballroom's entrance, the boys watched through Frenchie's surveillance feed. They'd positioned themselves outside, ready to evacuate civilians, but the fight had escalated faster than expected. Huey stared at the screen, unable to look away. He's not even hurt, Huey said. Homelander hit him with everything and he's not even hurt. Because he's not alive, Frenchie replied. How do you kill something that's already dead? How do you intimidate something that has no fear? Homelander has never faced an enemy like this. On screen, Homelander attacked again and again. Punches that could level mountains, heat vision that could melt steel. He grabbed Ghost Rider and flew upward, crashing through the ceiling, through the floors above, carrying them both into the night sky over New York. The camera feed switched to news helicopters, capturing the impossible battle unfolding above Manhattan. Homelander flew higher, faster, until the city became a constellation of lights below them. Then he released Ghost Rider, letting him fall. 500 feet, 1,000, 2,000. The fall would kill a normal person. Hell, it would kill most soups. Ghost Rider plummeted, his chains streaming behind him like burning comets. And just before impact, his motorcycle appeared beneath him, materialized from hellfire and will, and he landed on it perfectly, the bike's tires somehow finding purchase on vertical air, and he drove. Upward, defying gravity and physics, the motorcycle's engine roaring like a beast from mythology, closing the distance to Homelander with impossible speed. What the fuck? MM breathed, watching the surveillance feed. He's riding vertically, through the air. That's not how motorcycles work. That's not how anything works, Butcher replied. But I'll be damned if it isn't working. Ghost Rider's chain lashed out, wrapping around Homelander's ankle with the crack of a whip made from sins and fire. He yanked, hard, pulling America's greatest hero from the sky. They plummeted together, Homelander struggling to break free, to use his heat vision, to do anything that would stop this burning nightmare that had turned his world upside down. They crashed through the Lexington's roof, through 5 floors, landing in the ballroom where it had all begun. The impact created a crater in the marble floor. Dust and debris rained down. Emergency sprinklers activated, but the water evaporated before it could touch Ghost Rider's flames. Homelander tried to rise, but the chain held him, burning not his flesh but something deeper. His pride, his certainty, his carefully constructed delusion of godhood. Ghost Rider dismounted, walking across the rubble toward his prey. You wanted to fight, Ghost Rider said. You wanted to prove your strength, but strength is not righteousness. Power is not justice. And you, Homelander, have used your power to cause nothing but pain." He grabbed Homelander's head with both hands, forcing the hero to look directly into his burning eyes. "Now you will know the penance stare. You will feel every moment of suffering you've caused, every innocent life you've taken, every person you've hurt, and you will understand finally what you truly are." The flames in Ghost Rider's eyes intensified, twin suns of judgment boring into Homelander's soul, and Homelander began to scream. The scream that came from Homelander wasn't human. It was the sound of a mind breaking under the weight of absolute truth, of every rationalization and justification burning away to leave only raw, undeniable sin. His invulnerable body thrashed in Ghost Rider's grip, but no amount of super strength could break the hold. This wasn't a physical restraint. This was judgment itself. Through Ghost Rider's flames, everyone watching, the remaining reporters, the social media influencers streaming live, the millions already tuning in online, saw what Homelander saw. The penance stare didn't just punish the guilty, it broadcast their crimes for all to witness. Flight 37. The passengers' faces as they realized Homelander wasn't going to save them. A young mother holding her daughter, whispering that everything would be okay even as the plane descended toward the Atlantic. Homelander's callous laugh as he flew away, leaving them to drown. Not because he couldn't save them, but because saving them imperfectly would damage his brand. Madeline Stillwell. Her fear in those final moments, realizing the man she'd helped create, the weapon she'd tried to control, was about to murder her. Her last thought. Not for herself, but for her son, wondering who would protect him now. The compound in Central America. Homelander's heat vision cutting through innocent civilians, farmers, children, a pregnant woman. Because one terrorist had hidden among them. The efficiency of his slaughter. The way he'd smiled afterward, pleased with his own decisiveness. Starlight. Not her body, but her spirit, broken piece by his threats. His manipulation, his casual cruelty. The way he'd forced her to compromise everything she believed in until she barely recognized herself. The plane crash he'd caused while racing a train, killing 47 people on the ground. The witnesses he'd intimidated into silence. The Vought employees who'd questioned him and mysteriously disappeared. Every sexual assault covered up by NDAs and corporate lawyers. Every life crushed beneath his ego. The list went on, and on, and on. Homelander experienced it all from the victim's perspective. He felt the mother's terror on Flight 37. He felt Madeline's betrayal. He felt every bullet of pain from every person his actions had destroyed. The penance stare forced him to understand, truly understand, the cost of his existence. When Ghost Rider finally released him, Homelander collapsed to the ruined ballroom floor, his eyes burned black like every other person who'd faced judgment. Tears of blood streamed down his perfect face. His mouth moved, forming words that came out as broken whispers. I saw them. I felt them. All of them. Every one. The world watched in silence. No one spoke. No one moved. The footage was spreading across every platform, unstoppable, undeniable. Vaught's servers crashed under the traffic load. News networks abandoned their scheduled programming to show the live feeds. In homes across America, families gathered around screens, watching their greatest hero broken and weeping on national television. Queen Maeve stared at the scene, her sword forgotten in her hand. She'd known Homelander was a monster. She'd known for years. But seeing it laid bare like this, seeing every sin exposed for the world to witness, made it real in a way it had never been before. There was no going back from this. No PR campaign that could spin it. No lie big enough to cover this truth. Jesus Christ, A-Train whispered. He's actually crying. Starlight felt something crack open inside her chest. Not sympathy for Homelander, but relief. Years of abuse, of fear, of forced complicity suddenly lifted. Everyone could see what she'd known all along. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't weak. Homelander was exactly the monster she'd believed him to be. Ghost Rider stood over his fallen enemy, his flames dimming slightly. This is judgment. This is the price of sin. And now the world knows what heroes truly are in this broken age. Outside the Lexington, the boys pushed through the crowd of evacuees, making their way toward the ballroom. Police were arriving, SWAT teams, military units. Vought had called in every favor, activating emergency protocols designed for terrorist attacks. But what do you do when the terrorist is right? When the judgment is deserved? Butcher reached the ballroom entrance first, stepping over rubble and burned carpet. He saw Homelander on the ground, broken, and felt something he hadn't expected. Not satisfaction, but emptiness. He'd wanted this for years. He'd dedicated his life to destroying Homelander, to making him pay for what happened to Becca. And now that it had happened, now that Homelander had faced consequences, Butcher realized that vengeance didn't heal anything. It didn't bring Becca back. It didn't erase the pain. It just revealed that even righteous anger had limits. "Is he dead?" Huey asked, arriving beside Butcher. Ghost Rider shook his head. Death would be mercy. He will live with what he has seen. Every victim's pain is now his pain. Every moment of suffering he caused is burned into his soul. He cannot forget, cannot escape. He will carry this burden until the day he truly dies. Vaught's response came fast and desperate. Within an hour, every major news network received cease and desist orders. Social media platforms were threatened with lawsuits if they didn't remove the footage. Government officials, the ones Vought owned, called the incident a tragic attack on American heroes and promised swift justice against the supernatural terrorist. But the footage was already everywhere, encrypted, mirrored, downloaded millions of times. You couldn't unsee what Ghost Rider had shown the world. You couldn't unknow the truth. Vought Tower became a fortress. Ashley Barrett, Vaught's current VP of Hero Management, held an emergency press conference at 3 a.m., her face pale with exhaustion and fear. Homelander is recovering from this unprovoked attack. The footage you've seen has been manipulated, edited, taken out of context. We are cooperating with federal authorities to apprehend the individual responsible for this terrorism. A reporter interrupted. "Ms. Barrett, how do you explain the penance stare? Multiple witnesses, including several of the 7, confirmed what we saw was real. Are you saying hundreds of people are lying?" Ashley's prepared statement crumbled. Vought International stands by its heroes. We have always stood by our heroes, and we will continue to, even after evidence shows Homelander murdered civilians, let a plane full of passengers die, committed dozens of documented atrocities. Ashley fled the podium. The press conference devolved into chaos. Vaught's stock continued to plummet, dropping 40% in after-hours trading. International governments issued statements demanding investigations. The UN called an emergency session, and across America, people who'd spent years worshipping Homelander began asking uncomfortable questions. If he lied about this, what else had he lied about? If the 7 weren't heroes, what were they? If Vought manufactured their powers, their stories, their public images, what was real? In a safe house in Brooklyn, the boys and Ghost Rider watched the news coverage in silence. The world was changing, not because of leaked documents or whistleblower testimony, but because truth had been forced into the light with supernatural fire. You couldn't spin judgment. You couldn't PR your way out of hell. "What happens now?" MM asked. "Homelander's broken, but Vaught's still standing. They've got dozens of other soups, thousands of employees, billions in assets. You hurt them, but you didn't kill them." "I never intended to kill them," Ghost Rider said. "I intended to expose them, to show the world what hides behind the masks and capes. The rest is up to humanity. You must decide what to do with this truth." Frenchie pulled up social media feeds showing the response spreading across the internet. "Homelander is a murderer" was trending worldwide. Vought lied. No more fake heroes. Protests were organizing outside Vought facilities in 17 cities. Former Vought employees were coming forward with their own stories, emboldened by Ghost Rider's exposure. "People are angry," Frenchie said. "Angrier than I have ever seen. But anger fades. Vought has weathered scandals before. They will weather this one too, unless we keep the pressure on," Butcher finished. "Homelander was the linchpin, the face of Vought. But he's not the company. We need to go after the rest. The executives, the board of directors, the scientists who perfected Compound Phi, everyone who built this machine." Ghost Rider's flames intensified. "Then we continue. Every guilty soul will be judged. Every sin will be exposed. Until Vought International is nothing but ash and memory." Starlight appeared in the doorway, still wearing her costume from the gala, though it was torn and stained with dust. She'd slipped away from the Seven's emergency meeting, following a hunch about where the boys would be. "I want to help." Everyone turned to stare at her. A member of the Seven standing in their safe house, offering alliance. "Why?" Butcher asked suspiciously. "Because you were right. About everything. I spent years trying to change Vought, from the inside, trying to be a real hero within their system. But the system is rotten. It can't be reformed. It has to be destroyed." She looked at Ghost Rider, meeting those empty, burning eyes without flinching. "And I want to help destroy it." Ghost Rider studied her, flames flickering as the spirit of vengeance judged her soul. After a moment, he nodded. "You are not innocent. You have compromised. You have looked away from evil to preserve your position. But your sins are sins of weakness, not malice. You can be redeemed." "I don't want redemption," Starlight said. "I want justice. Real justice, not Vought's version." Butcher laughed, a harsh sound. "Well then, looks like we've got ourselves a proper rebellion. The boys, a demon from hell, and a turncoat soup. Vought's PR team is going to have a field day with this." "Let them," MM said. "We've got something they don't. The truth. And apparently, hellfire." Outside, the sun was rising over New York City, a new day dawning on a world that had fundamentally changed overnight. Homelander, America's greatest hero, had been exposed as a mass murderer on live television. Vought International's carefully constructed mythology had burned away to reveal the corporate evil beneath. And for the first time in decades, people were questioning the narrative they'd been sold. The question now wasn't whether Vought would survive. The question was how many more sins needed to be judged before the guilty finally faced consequences. Ghost Rider walked to the window, looking out over the city. This is only the beginning. Homelander was a symptom, not the disease. Vought created him. Vought enabled him. Vought profited from his atrocities, and there are dozens more like him, hidden behind corporate protections and government contracts. They all must face judgment. "Then we'd better get to work," Butcher said, cracking his knuckles. "Because Judgment Day is just getting started." The Seven fell apart within 72 hours. A Train, terrified of facing the penance stare for his own sins. The accidental murder of Huey's girlfriend Robin. The countless people he'd killed while racing for social media clout. The civilians crushed during his Compound V-fueled heart attacks, fled to Mexico and went into hiding. The Deep, whose crimes were primarily sexual assault covered by NDAs, held a tearful press conference admitting to past mistakes and checking himself into a rehabilitation facility that was really just a Vought-owned safe house in Montana. Black Noir remained silent as always, but surveillance footage showed him leaving Vought Tower at 3 a.m. with a duffel bag and no stated destination. Queen Maeve locked herself in her apartment with enough alcohol to kill a normal person and refused all communication. And Starlight, now openly aligned with the boys, became the face of resistance against Vought, a hero who'd walked away from corporate corruption to fight for actual justice. Homelander remained in Vought Tower's medical facility, catatonic. The penance stare had shattered something fundamental in his psyche. Doctors, the few brave enough to examine him, reported that his eyes tracked movement but showed no recognition, no awareness. He muttered constantly, repeating phrases. "I saw them. They were screaming. I felt it all." His powers still functioned. When a nurse accidentally startled him, his heat vision activated reflexively, nearly killing her. But the intentional cruelty, the calculated violence that had defined him? Gone. Burned away by judgment. Vought tried to maintain control. They promoted the Seven's replacements from their secondary teams, superheroes with names like Supersonic and Blue Hawk, who'd been waiting years for their shot at fame. But the public wasn't buying it anymore. Protest crowds outside Vought facilities swelled into the thousands. Politicians who'd taken Vought money suddenly discovered their commitment to corporate accountability. And the FBI, finally freed from Vaught's political influence, launched investigations into dozens of classified facilities. Ghost Rider didn't wait for legal processes. While lawyers argued and politicians postured, he continued his campaign of judgment. A Vought board member who'd personally authorized human experimentation on prisoners burned in his Manhattan penthouse, his screams echoing across Central Park. A pharmaceutical executive who distributed Compound V to militia groups across Africa faced the penance stare in front of his family, collapsing while his wife and children watched in horror. A military contractor who'd helped Vought develop soups as weapons died when hellfire consumed his private jet at 30,000 feet. The bodies piled up, all guilty, all judged, all beyond saving. "He's not stopping," Huey said, reviewing the list of Ghost Rider's targets. They were gathered in a new safe house. Vought had discovered their previous location and sent mercenaries who'd barely escaped with their lives. 17 more dead in the past week. All Vought connected, all complicit in crimes. But still, this isn't justice anymore. It's vengeance. "Isn't that what we wanted?" Butcher asked. "Dead villains, exposed corruption. Vought on its knees." "We wanted accountability," Starlight said. She ditched her costume for civilian clothes, her blonde hair tied back, exhaustion evident in her face. "We wanted trials, evidence, the legal system actually working for once. Ghost Rider is just executing people." "People who deserve it," MM countered. "Every single person he's killed had blood on their hands. Multiple victims, documented crimes. These aren't innocent bystanders." "But who decides?" Huey pressed. "Who gave Ghost Rider the right to be judge, jury, and executioner? Today it's Vought executives. Tomorrow it could be anyone he decides is guilty. Where's the line?" Frenchie looked up from his laptop. "The line, mon ami, is precisely the problem with supernatural judgment. The spirit of vengeance does not compromise, does not show mercy. It sees sin and it punishes. There is no rehabilitation, no second chance, no acknowledgement that people can change. Only guilt and fire." The debate was interrupted by Ghost Rider's arrival. He materialized from shadows and flame, his skull blazing in the dim safe house. "You question my methods?" "Yeah, we fucking do," Butcher said. "You're making this personal. Hunting down every Vought executive like you're ticking names off a list. That's not justice. That's a vendetta." Is there a difference? Ghost Rider asked. These people have committed atrocities. They have profited from suffering. They have built an empire on lies and death. Would you prefer I wait for your broken legal system to hold them accountable? The same system they own, the same judges they've purchased, the same politicians they've compromised. I'd prefer you stop burning people alive, Huey said quietly, because every person you kill makes it harder for the rest of us to claim moral high ground. Vaught's painting you as a terrorist, and honestly, they're not completely wrong. Ghost Rider's flames flickered, and for a moment something almost human passed across the burning skull. Doubt, perhaps, or recognition. The spirit of vengeance does not compromise. That is its nature. But Johnny Blaze remembers what it means to be human, to question, to wonder if judgment is enough. It was the first time he'd spoken of himself as two entities, the human host and the supernatural force inhabiting him. Starlight stepped forward carefully. Can we talk to Johnny? Not the spirit, the man. The flames dimmed, the skull remained. But the intensity lessened, and when Ghost Rider spoke again, his voice was different, rougher, more weary. I'm here. I'm always here, trapped inside this thing, watching it judge and burn and kill. I made a deal with the demon to save someone I loved. The demon lied, and now I'm bonded to the spirit of vengeance, forced to execute its judgment whether I want to or not. Can you control it? MM asked. Sometimes, when the sins aren't too great, when the guilt isn't overwhelming, I can hold it back. But Vought, Johnny Blaze laughed bitterly, flames sputtering. Vaught's sins are so vast, so deep, the spirit barely needs my permission anymore. It just acts. And I'm along for the ride, watching through these burning eyes as it tears through the guilty. Then we need to give it something else to focus on, Butcher said. Something that satisfies its need for judgment, but doesn't involve murdering dozens of executives. Like what? Starlight asked. Frenchie pulled up a file on his laptop. Detailed schematics, security protocols, and location data. Vaught's primary Compound V production facility. Not a black site, the main laboratory where they synthesize, test, and refine the formula. It is located in upstate New York, disguised as a research campus. If we destroy it, we cripple Vaught's ability to create new soups. No more experiments. No more victims. Ghost Rider studied the schematics, his flames reflecting in the laptop screen. There will be scientists, security personnel, administrative staff. Not all of them will be guilty enough to burn. Then we evacuate them first, Huey said. We give them a chance to leave. Anyone who stays, anyone who fights to protect Compound V production, they've made their choice. But the innocent ones, they get to walk away. It was a compromise. The spirit of vengeance wouldn't accept mercy for the truly guilty, but it could be convinced to spare those whose sins were merely employment, not malice. Johnny Blaze seized on the idea, forcing the spirit to agree, wrestling with the demon inside him until he gasped with exertion. All right, he said finally. We hit the facility. We destroy Compound V at its source, but I need your help. The spirit is powerful, but it's not tactical. It doesn't plan. It just judges. You're the boys. You know how to hurt Vought where it counts. Butcher grinned, the first genuine smile he'd shown in days. Mate, we've been planning this particular hit for 2 years, never had the firepower to pull it off. But with you, consider it done. They spent the next 18 hours planning. Frenchie hacked Vaught's security systems, creating blind spots and false alerts. MM coordinated logistics, vehicles, weapons, escape routes. Starlight used her insider knowledge to identify which staff members were true believers and which were just employees who'd turn on Vought if given the chance. Huey, surprisingly, proved most valuable by suggesting they leak the raid plans to journalists beforehand, ensuring cameras would be present to document everything. "If we're destroying Vaught's main lab, we do it publicly," Huey argued. "We show the world exactly what they were doing there. No spin, no corporate PR, just truth." Ghost Rider approved. "The spirit of vengeance has no need for shadows. Let the world watch." Dawn broke over upstate New York, revealing the Sage Grove Center, officially a pharmaceutical research campus, unofficially the birthplace of every superhero America worshipped. It sprawled across 200 acres, pristine buildings housing laboratories where human beings were reduced to test subjects, and Compound V was refined into the product that fueled Vaught's empire. Ghost Rider's motorcycle roared up the main access road, flames trailing behind him like a comet. Behind him came the boys in a stolen van, and behind them, news helicopters broadcasting live. Vaught's security activated immediately. Armed guards, automated turrets, and 3 supes who'd been stationed at the facility specifically to counter threats. The first super, a man who could generate electrical blasts, attacked Ghost Rider head-on. His lightning struck the rider's skull, energy crackling across bone and flame. Ghost Rider didn't slow down. He reached out, grabbed the Supe by the throat, and looked into his eyes. The penance stare lasted 5 seconds. The Supe crumpled, screaming about the 17 test subjects he'd helped dispose of when their powers manifested incorrectly. Ghost Rider dropped him and continued forward. The second Supe had superhuman strength, Vaught's attempt to create another Homelander. He threw a car at Ghost Rider. The rider's chain lashed out, wrapping around the vehicle mid-flight and hurling it back. The collision sent the strong Supe tumbling, and before he could recover, Ghost Rider was on him, chains binding, flames judging. The third Supe ran. Smart choice. The boys breached the facility's perimeter using Frenchie's hacked credentials, moving through corridors while Ghost Rider drew security's attention at the main entrance. They found laboratories full of horrifying equipment, restraint chairs designed for children, vats of Compound Phi in various stages of refinement, cryogenic storage containing tissue samples from failed subjects. Huey documented everything with a camera, streaming footage to multiple platforms simultaneously. "Jesus Christ," MM whispered, staring at a wall of photographs, test subjects before and after Compound V injection. Most of the after photos showed corpses or grotesque mutations. They've been doing this for decades. Starlight found the administrative records, names, dates, acquisition sources. Many subjects had been purchased from orphanages, prisons, psychiatric facilities. Vought had literally been buying human beings to experiment on. Her hands shook as she photographed the evidence. "Everyone needs to see this," she said. "Every person who ever defended Vought, every parent who dreamed their kid might be a hero someday. They need to see what it actually costs." Outside, Ghost Rider had reached the main laboratory. Scientists fled before him, taking the chance to escape that the boys had promised. But the security chief, a former military officer named Marcus Thorne, who'd personally overseen the disposal of 300 failed test subjects, drew his weapon and stood his ground. "You're not destroying this facility," Thorne said. "Compound V is the future. It's evolution. A few casualties are acceptable for—" The penance stare cut him off. Thorne's weapon clattered to the floor as he fell to his knees, experiencing every moment of suffering he'd caused, every child injected with experimental compounds, every mutation he'd classified as acceptable loss, every family he'd lied to about their missing loved ones. When Ghost Rider released him, Thorne was catatonic, just like Homelander. Another mind broken by absolute truth. The boys planted explosives throughout the facility, not the kind that would harm fleeing staff, but precise charges that would destroy laboratories, research data, and Compound V supplies. They worked quickly, professionally, aware that Vought reinforcements were en route. Military contractors, more soups, maybe even the remaining members of the Seven, desperate to prove their loyalty. "Time to go," Butcher called over comms. "Charge is set, 30-minute timer." They evacuated, Ghost Rider the last to leave. He stood in the main laboratory, surrounded by the machinery that had created superheroes, and felt the spirit of vengeance's satisfaction. This place was a monument to sin, and it would burn. The explosion, when it came, was visible from 15 miles away. Sage Grove Center erupted in flames, not hellfire this time, but ordinary combustion that consumed laboratories, destroyed research, and sent Compound V samples burning into the atmosphere. Fire crews would take 16 hours to contain the blaze. Investigators would find nothing salvageable. Vought's ability to create new soups died in that fire. From a hill overlooking the destruction, the boys and Ghost Rider watched in silence. News helicopters circled, broadcasting the burning facility to millions of viewers. Journalists were already reporting the evidence the boys had leaked. The photographs, the documents, the proof of human experimentation on an industrial scale. "We did it," Huey said quietly. "We actually did it. Vought can't make any more heroes now." "They'll try," MM said. "They've got other facilities, backup labs, offshore operations." "Then we'll burn those too," Ghost Rider replied. His flames had dimmed to a low burn, Johnny Blaze's humanity more visible in this moment of victory. "Until there's nothing left but truth and ash." Starlight's phone rang. She answered, listened, and her face went pale. That was a contact at the CIA. Vaught's board of directors just held an emergency meeting. They're activating Protocol Crimson. "What's Protocol Crimson?" Butcher asked. "It's their doomsday option. If Vought faces existential threat, they release every unstable soupe they've ever created, every failed experiment they've kept in storage, every psychotic, uncontrollable superhuman they couldn't market. They unleash them on population centers and then offer to solve the crisis for a price." Ghost Rider's flames exploded back to full intensity. They would rather destroy cities than accept defeat. "They'd rather prove the world needs them," Starlight said. "If they can't be heroes, they'll create villains that make heroes necessary." The satisfaction of destroying Sage Grove evaporated. They'd won a battle, but Vought was preparing to turn the entire war into a massacre. Innocent people would die, thousands, maybe millions, just to preserve a corporation's power. "How many unstable soups are we talking about?" MM asked. Starlight checked her phone again, scrolling through classified files she'd stolen before defecting. 37. All of them too dangerous for field deployment. Some of them are barely human anymore. Vaught's been keeping them sedated in underground facilities, waiting for a use case. "And now we're the use case," Butcher said bitterly. "Fuck." Ghost Rider turned his burning skull toward Manhattan, where Vought Tower stood like a monument to everything they'd been fighting. "Then we end this. Not just Vaught's infrastructure, not just their laboratories. We go to the source. We judge the board of directors. We make them face what they've done before they can unleash their final atrocity." "That's suicide," Frenchie said. "Vought Tower is a fortress, security, soups, every defense they can muster. We would never make it past the lobby." "You won't," Ghost Rider agreed. "But I will. And when I'm finished judging the guilty, there won't be a board of directors left to authorize anything." It was the most dangerous plan yet. But as they stood on that hill, watching Vaught's laboratory burn, each of them understood that there was no turning back. They'd started a war against corporate evil, and wars only ended when one side was completely destroyed. The question was, which side would that be? Vought Tower stood 72 stories tall in the heart of Manhattan, a gleaming monument to corporate power that dominated the skyline like a modern Tower of Babel. Its lower floors housed retail spaces where tourists bought superhero merchandise. Middle floors contained offices for marketing, legal, and public relations teams. Upper floors held executive suites, boardrooms, and the private chambers where Vaught's real decisions were made. And in the sub-basements, levels that didn't appear on any public blueprint, Protocol Crimson awaited activation. The boys couldn't infiltrate it. Starlight's credentials had been revoked the moment she defected. Butcher's face was flagged by every security system Vought owned. Even Frenchie's hacking skills had limits when confronting military-grade cybersecurity designed specifically to prevent the kind of breach they needed. But Ghost Rider didn't need credentials, didn't need security clearance, didn't need to infiltrate. He simply arrived. 3:47 a.m., the Ghost Rider's motorcycle crashed through Vought Tower's ground floor windows at impossible speed, hellfire and chrome tearing through safety glass and marble floors. Alarms screamed. Security personnel scrambled, drawing weapons, activating protocols designed to counter superhuman threats. Automated turrets descended from the ceiling, targeting systems locking onto the burning figure that had just violated America's most secure corporate headquarters. They opened fire, hundreds of rounds per second, armor-piercing bullets that could stop anything human and most soups. The bullets passed through Ghost Rider's flames harmlessly, their trajectories bending around him as if reality itself refused to let him be stopped. He drove through the lobby, chains trailing, hellfire scorching marble and steel, heading directly for the elevators. A soupe emerged from a side corridor, Groundhog, a secondary team member with enhanced durability and seismic manipulation. Vought had been holding him in reserve for moments exactly like this. He slammed his fists into the floor, and the entire lobby buckled, the ground rippling like water, trying to knock Ghost Rider from his motorcycle. Ghost Rider drove vertically up the wall, defying gravity through sheer supernatural will. Circling the lobby's perimeter before launching himself across the distance and landing perfectly as the seismic attack dissipated. He didn't slow down, didn't acknowledge the attack, just continued forward with the patient, inexorable certainty of judgment itself. Groundhog tried again, the entire building shaking, but Ghost Rider was already on him. One hand grabbed the soup's face, flames intensifying. The penance stare lasted 3 seconds. Groundhog collapsed, screaming about the civilians he'd buried alive during training exercises, the protesters he'd killed under orders from Vought management. Ghost Rider left him alive but broken, just like all the others. The elevator wouldn't work. Security had locked down all access to upper floors, so Ghost Rider drove his motorcycle straight into the stairwell. The bike somehow finding purchase on vertical stairs, engine roaring as he ascended through Vought Tower like a rocket made of hellfire and vengeance. Security tried to stop him on every floor. SWAT teams, private military contractors. 3 more soupies pulled from Vaught's reserve roster. None of it mattered. Bullets didn't work. Explosives didn't work. Superpowers didn't work. The spirit of vengeance could not be stopped by anything mortal, anything manufactured, anything born of human fear and corporate greed. By the time Ghost Rider reached the 68th floor, the board of directors' emergency meeting room, 17 security personnel lay broken in his wake. Not dead. The spirit judged each one individually, and most were merely employees following orders, their sins insufficient to warrant death. But those who'd committed atrocities in Vaught's name, those who'd enthusiastically participated in human rights violations, they burned. The boardroom doors were reinforced titanium, designed to withstand military-grade explosives. Ghost Rider's hellfire melted them like wax. He drove through the molten metal, his motorcycle's tires somehow gripping molten steel, emerging into a conference room where 7 people sat around a table, protected by the last 3 functional members of Vought's superhero roster. The board of directors, old men and women who'd spent decades building an empire on lies and suffering. They sat in expensive suits behind tablets displaying Protocol Crimson's activation codes, their faces showing fear for the first time in years. These were people accustomed to controlling everything: politicians, media, heroes themselves, people who'd ordered murders, authorized experiments, and destroyed anyone who threatened their power. And now judgment had found them. "Stop him," the CEO ordered. A woman named Catherine Sterling, who'd greenlit more human experiments than any other executive in Vaught's history. "Kill it, whatever it takes." The 3 soups attacked simultaneously, but Ghost Rider had judged worse than them, had burned demons, faced angels, survived battles that would reduce these corporate-manufactured heroes to ash and memory. His chains lashed out, binding one soupe mid-flight. His flames consumed another's energy projection. The third, showing more intelligence than courage, fled through a side exit. Then Ghost Rider stood before the board of directors, his skull blazing like a second sun, casting their sins in stark relief. "You built an empire on innocent blood," he said, his voice carrying the screams of everyone Vought had ever killed. "You manufactured heroes and called it salvation. You experimented on children and called it progress. You purchased politicians and called it business. Every life destroyed by Compound 5, every family torn apart by your greed, every person who died in your laboratories, their blood is on your hands." Catherine Sterling tried to maintain composure, though her hand trembled on the tablet. "You have no authority here. We're protected by federal law, corporate charter, international treaty. You can't just—" The penance stare cut her off. Ghost Rider grabbed her head, forcing her to look directly into his burning eyes, and Catherine Sterling experienced every sin she'd ever committed. Every child she'd ordered injected with experimental compounds, every whistleblower she'd had silenced permanently, every family she'd lied to about their missing loved ones. The weight of 10,000 deaths pressed down on her soul, and she screamed. One by one, Ghost Rider judged them all. The CFO who'd profited billions from Compound V sales while knowing the human cost. The chief scientist who'd personally overseen experiments on unwilling subjects. The board member who'd suggested marketing soups to authoritarian regimes. Each one faced the penance stare. Each one collapsed, their minds shattered by absolute truth. Only 2 survived with any sanity intact, junior board members whose sins were complicity rather than instigation, who'd simply looked away instead of actively participating. Ghost Rider left them alive to carry the message. Judgment had come for Vought International. Protocol, Crimson's activation codes died with the board. The unstable soups remained sedated in their underground cells. The doomsday option Vought had prepared died before it could be born. Outside the tower, the boys watched through Frenchie's hacked security feeds. They saw Ghost Rider emerge from the building, walking through the front entrance as flames consumed the upper floors. Not structural damage, the building would stand. But every piece of evidence, every computer system, every classified file was burning, purging Vaught's secrets in supernatural fire. "He did it," Huey said, disbelief evident in his voice. "He actually did it. Vaught's board is gone. Their leadership is gone. Everything they built. It's over," Starlight finished. "Or at least, this version of it is over. Vought will try to survive. Shareholders will install new leadership, but they'll never recover from this. The world has seen too much." Butcher watched Ghost Rider approach, the rider's flames dimmer now, exhaustion evident even in a supernatural entity. "You look like shit, mate, even for a flaming skull." "The spirit is sated," Ghost Rider replied. His voice was more Johnny Blaze than demonic chorus now, human, tired, wondering if vengeance was worth the cost. "The guilty have been judged. Vought's heart has been torn out, but the rot runs deeper than one corporation, deeper than one city. This world has forgotten what heroism truly means." MM pulled up his phone, showing news coverage. Every major outlet was reporting Vaught's collapse. The stock had crashed to zero. Federal agents were seizing assets. International warrants were being issued for surviving executives. And across America, people were gathering in streets, demanding accountability not just from Vought, but from every institution that had protected them. "You started something," MM said. "Something bigger than Vought. People are questioning everything now. Every corporation, every politician, every hero they've been told to worship. You didn't just judge the guilty. You made everyone else realize they'd been complicit. Is that victory?" Ghost Rider asked. "Or have I simply traded one form of corruption for chaos?" "It's a beginning," Starlight said, "not an ending." Vought controlled the narrative about heroes for so long that people forgot what real heroism looks like. Now they have to figure it out for themselves, build something better, something honest. Frenchie closed his laptop, equipment already being packed for their inevitable evacuation. Vought might be dying, but powerful entities didn't die quietly. There would be retaliation, legal consequences, attempts to hunt down everyone involved in the corporation's destruction. So what now? Ghost Rider rides off into sunset. The boys disband? We all pretend this never happened? No, Butcher said. We finish this properly. Vaught's dead, but there are other corporations manufacturing soups, other companies trying to weaponize Compound V, other nations developing their own programs. We exposed the rot in America. Now we expose it everywhere. Ghost Rider's flames flickered, Johnny Blaze wrestling with the spirit of vengeance again, trying to decide if continued judgment was justice or simply addiction to vengeance. The spirit wants to burn them all, every guilty soul, every corporation, every government that has abused power. It would turn this world to ash if I let it. Then don't let it, Huey said quietly. You're not just the spirit of vengeance. You're Johnny Blaze. You're human. And humans get to choose when to stop. For a long moment, Ghost Rider stood silent, flames reflecting in windows of nearby buildings, casting dancing shadows across Manhattan streets. Dawn was approaching, the sun rising on a world fundamentally changed by one night of judgment. I'll stop when the guilty stop sinning, Ghost Rider finally said. When corporations stop experimenting on the innocent, when governments stop weaponizing power, when heroes actually become heroic. Until then, the spirit will judge, and I'll try to guide it towards something resembling justice. Good enough, Butcher said. He extended his hand, a gesture of alliance, of respect, of acknowledgement that sometimes monsters were necessary to fight worse monsters. Ghost Rider shook it, his burning hand not harming Butcher's flesh. The spirit of vengeance recognized a kindred soul, someone who'd suffered, who'd lost, who'd chosen vengeance but tried to aim it towards something noble. You fought well, Ghost Rider said to all of them. The boys, Starlight. You faced evil without powers, without supernatural abilities, with nothing but courage and determination. That's more heroic than anything Vought ever manufactured. He walked toward his motorcycle, flames already beginning their transformation. The skull would remain. That was permanent now, the price of Johnny Blaze's deal with the demon. But the intensity dimmed, the hellfire retreating to something almost manageable, and for a moment they could see the man beneath the curse, tired, scarred, wondering if he'd ever be free. "Where will you go?" Starlight asked. "Wherever the guilty hide," Ghost Rider replied. He mounted his motorcycle, the engine growling to life with that distinctive supernatural rumble. "This world has many sins left to judge, many evils left to burn. Vought was just the beginning." He rode off into the sunrise, hellfire trailing behind him, heading toward the next battle, the next judgment, the next attempt to force an unjust world to confront its sins. The boys watched him go, each processing what they'd accomplished and what it had cost. Homelander broken, Vought destroyed, Compound V's source eliminated, but at the price of dozens dead, an entire corporate empire burned to the ground, and the unleashing of supernatural vengeance on modern America. "We're going to be famous," Huey said. "Infamous. Wanted by multiple governments. Every intelligence agency on Earth is going to be hunting us." "Worth it," MM said simply. "Was it?" Frenchie asked. "We destroyed Vought, yes, but we did it with the demon's help. We enabled vengeance, not justice. Where is the line?" Butcher lit a cigarette, his first in months, watching the sun rise over a changed New York. "The line is wherever we draw it. Ghost Rider's going to keep judging. We're going to keep fighting. And somewhere in between vengeance and justice, maybe we'll find something worth believing in again." Starlight's phone buzzed with notifications, hundreds of them. Messages from people who'd seen the evidence, who'd watched Homelander's judgment, who wanted to help build something better. Former Vought employees ready to testify, scientists willing to develop compound V alternatives that didn't require human experimentation. Politicians finally brave enough to challenge corporate power. "People want change," she said, scrolling through messages. "Real change. They're organizing, building. This isn't just destruction, it's an opportunity." "Then we'd better make sure they don't waste it," Butcher said, "because corporations like Vought don't stay dead. They evolve, adapt, come back under different names with the same sins. We exposed them once. We'll need to stay vigilant forever." The sun fully cleared the horizon, its light washing across Manhattan, illuminating Vought Tower's damaged upper floors and the streets below where protesters still gathered. A new day, a new world, one where heroes were no longer manufactured by corporations, where power could be questioned, where judgment, supernatural or otherwise, reminded everyone that evil had consequences. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't clean, but it was honest. And honesty, the boys had learned, was the rarest superpower of all. 3 weeks after Vought Tower burned, the world was still reeling. Congressional hearings had begun, with surviving Vought employees testifying under immunity about decades of human experimentation. The UN launched investigations into international compound V distribution, and across America, people gathered in town halls and community centers asking the same question. If everything we believed about heroes was a lie, what do we believe in now? The boys operated from the shadows, feeding evidence to journalists, protecting whistleblowers, and coordinating with Ghost Rider when new threats emerged. Because Vaught's collapse had created a power vacuum, and nature, even corporate nature, abhorred a vacuum. Rival companies emerged almost immediately. Godolphin University, which had quietly been developing its own Compound V program, announced plans to ethically create superheroes through voluntary adult trials. A Chinese pharmaceutical giant called Shenglong Industries began marketing Enhancement Formula Zero to foreign governments. And in Russia, a state-sponsored program called Red Star was producing soups at an alarming rate, unconcerned with Western notions of human rights. "It's spreading," MM said, reviewing intelligence reports in their new safe house, a warehouse in Queens that Frenchie had acquired through contacts nobody asked about. "We killed Vought, but the idea of manufactured superheroes, That's alive and well. Every nation wants their own 7. Every corporation sees the profit margin. Butcher slammed his fist on the table. Then we burn them all. Every lab, every facility. Every bastard who thinks they can play God with Compound 5. We can't, Starlight said quietly. She'd been monitoring social media, watching public opinion shift and fracture. People are divided. Half think Vought was an aberration and new companies will do it right. The other half want Compound V banned entirely, all soups registered or imprisoned. We're heading toward a war, humans versus superhumans. Huey pulled up footage from a rally in Washington, D.C. Thousands of protesters carried signs reading "No more manufactured heroes" and "Compound V is murder." But across the street, a counter-protest chanted "Soups are people too" and "Don't blame us for Vought's crimes." Riot police stood between them, waiting for violence that seemed inevitable. "This is what happens when truth isn't gentle," Frenchie observed. Ghost Rider forced the world to see Vought's evil, but he offered no solution, only judgment, and judgment without reconstruction leaves nothing but rubble and rage. As if summoned by his name, Ghost Rider materialized from shadows at the warehouse entrance. But something was different. The flames burned lower, less intense, and Johnny Blaze's human features were more visible beneath the skull, tortured, exhausted, barely holding the spirit at bay. "I can't stop it," Johnny said, his voice raw with desperation. "The spirit wants to judge everyone. Every scientist working on Compound V alternatives, every politician who's even considering SUPI registration, every person who's compromised, who's looked away, who's been complicit in any way. It's not satisfied with Vought's destruction. It wants to burn the entire system down." "And you?" Butcher asked. "What do you want?" "I want to be free." Johnny Blaze collapsed against a support beam, flames flickering weakly. "I made a deal to save someone I loved. The demon lied. I got possessed by the spirit of vengeance, and now I'm trapped in an endless cycle of judgment that never heals anything, never builds anything, just burns and burns and burns." Starlight approached carefully. "What if we could separate you from the spirit?" "Not possible. The bond is supernatural, permanent. Only death breaks it, and I'm not even sure about that. The spirit might just find a new host and continue judging." "Then we need to give it something else to judge," Huey said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. "Something big enough to satisfy it. Something that would actually stop the spread of weaponized Compound V without just murdering scientists." "What did you have in mind?" MM asked skeptically. Huey pulled up classified files that Frenchie had stolen from multiple sources: Godolkin University's research, Shenglong Industries' production facilities, Russia's Red Star program, and a dozen smaller operations across the globe. They're all connected, different companies, different countries, but they're all using research stolen from Vought. The same formulas, the same techniques, the same willingness to experiment on unwilling subjects. What if we didn't destroy them one by one? What if we exposed them all simultaneously? "A global data dump," Frenchie said, understanding immediately. "Everything. Every corporation developing Compound V. Every government program. Every scientist involved. We force the entire world to confront what's being done in the name of creating heroes. And Ghost Rider judges the ones truly guilty," Starlight added. "Not everyone involved, just the ones who've crossed the line into atrocity. The ones experimenting on prisoners, on children, on people who can't consent." Ghost Rider's flames intensified slightly, the spirit responding to the promise of judgment, of sins exposed and evil punished. It would require coordination, perfect timing, and someone would need to infiltrate these facilities, gather evidence that can't be dismissed as fabrication. "We've done it before," Butcher said. "We infiltrated Vought for years. These other operations, they're not as sophisticated, not as protected. We can get inside. Pulled up a tactical map, marking facility locations across 3 continents. This is ambitious. We're talking simultaneous operations in New York, Shanghai, Moscow, Lagos, and half a dozen other cities. We'd need a team 5 times our size. Then we build one, Starlight said. She pulled up her phone, showing contact lists filled with names. There are others like me, Soups who wanted to be real heroes but got trapped in Vaught's system, former employees who know where bodies are buried, scientists who've been trying to blow the whistle for years. We're not alone anymore. Ghost Rider's judgment showed everyone the truth. Now we use that momentum. Over the next 72 hours, they built a network. Former Vought employees provided intelligence. Soups who'd defected offered their powers for infiltration and protection. Journalists coordinated publication timing. Hackers prepared to breach corporate security simultaneously. And Ghost Rider prepared to deliver judgment on a scale even the Spirit of Vengeance hadn't attempted before. The operation launched at midnight Greenwich Mean Time, coordinated across time zones to hit every target simultaneously. Frenchie's malware infiltrated corporate servers, downloading decades of classified research. Starlight and other defected Soups breached physical facilities, gathering evidence that digital files couldn't capture. The boys coordinated from their warehouse, directing teams, adjusting plans as situations evolved. And Ghost Rider rode between locations at supernatural speed, judging those whose crimes demanded immediate punishment. At Godolphin University, he found Dr. Richard Edison, the man who'd refined Compound 5 to work on adults, testing it on homeless people he'd purchased from corrupt police departments. The penance stare showed Edison every person he'd mutated, every life he'd destroyed in the name of scientific progress. Edison collapsed, screaming about the voices, the faces, the souls he'd condemned to agony. In Shanghai, Shenglong Industries' CEO faced judgment for selling enhancement Formula Zero to warlords in Africa, knowing it would be used on child soldiers. Her screams echoed through corporate headquarters as she experienced every child's pain, every forced injection, every young life twisted into a weapon. Moscow's Red Star facility proved most dangerous. Russian Soups, created specifically for military applications, attacked Ghost Rider with coordinated precision. But the Spirit of Vengeance had fought worse. His chains bound a super who could manipulate gravity. His flames consumed one who generated toxic gas. And when he reached the program director, a former KGB operative named Volkov, who'd personally ordered experiments on political prisoners, judgment was swift and absolute. Across the globe, the operation unfolded with brutal efficiency. Evidence was gathered. The guilty were judged. And by dawn, every major news outlet on Earth was running the same story. Compound V experimentation wasn't isolated to Vought. It was everywhere. A global industry built on human suffering, hidden behind corporate PR and government classification. The world erupted. Protests became riots. Governments fell. Corporate stock prices crashed. And the fragile divide between humans and Soups widened into a chasm that threatened to tear civilization apart. In their warehouse, the boys watched the chaos unfold with mixed emotions. They'd exposed evil on a global scale, but they'd also destabilized an entire world order. The question now wasn't whether they'd succeeded, it was whether humanity could survive the truth they'd revealed. Ghost Rider stood apart from them, flames burning brighter than they had in weeks. The spirit was satisfied, temporarily sated by the scale of judgment delivered. But Johnny Blaze's voice, when he spoke, carried nothing but exhaustion. "We showed them the darkness," he said, "but who's going to show them the light?" Nobody had an answer, because burning down corruption was easy. building something better. That was the hard part. And as dawn broke over a world confronting its own sins, they all wondered if they'd done more harm than good. Outside, sirens wailed. Somewhere in the city, humans and soups were fighting, and the question that would define the next era hung heavy in the air. What comes after judgment? The war everyone feared began not with government declaration or corporate conspiracy, but with a murder in Detroit. A soupy named Voltage, who'd been created by a subsidiary of Godolphin University, lost control during a protest and electrocuted 17 people. Whether it was intentional or an accident didn't matter. Humans saw a superhuman killing civilians, and soupies saw one of their own being hunted by an angry mob. Within hours, similar incidents erupted in Chicago, Los Angeles, and Houston. Humanity was fracturing along the fault line the boys and Ghost Rider had exposed. "We have to stop this," Huey said, watching footage of National Guard troops confronting soups in Atlanta. "People are dying. Both sides. This isn't what we wanted." "Isn't it?" Butcher asked bitterly. He'd been drinking more, sleeping less. The weight of their actions pressing down on him. "We wanted to destroy Vought. We wanted to expose Compound V. We wanted judgment. Well, we got it. And now everyone's judging everyone else, and the whole fucking world is burning." Starlight had been working non-stop, trying to coordinate peaceful dialogue between human rights groups and soupy advocacy organizations. But extremists on both sides were drowning out moderate voices. There's a group calling themselves the Human Liberation Front. They're demanding all soups be registered, monitored, or imprisoned. And on the other side, soup supremacists are arguing they're evolutionarily superior and humans are obsolete. We're heading toward genocide, one way or another. Coordinated with his contacts in law enforcement, but even cops were divided. Some saw soups as threats that needed containment. Others saw them as victims of corporate experimentation who deserved protection. The system's breaking down. When police can't agree on who's a criminal and who's a victim, you get chaos. And chaos gets people killed. Frenchie had gone quiet, working on something he refused to explain. When pressed, he simply said, "Perhaps judgment was not enough. Perhaps we need something else. Something that rebuilds rather than destroys." Ghost Rider had been absent for days, hunting the worst offenders, soups who were using the chaos to murder humans, humans who were lynching soups in vigilante justice. His judgment was impartial, burning the guilty on both sides, but every person he burned seemed to make the situation worse, creating martyrs that both sides could weaponize. When he finally returned to the warehouse, Johnny Blaze looked more human than he had in months. The flames were barely visible, the skull translucent, his own features showing through. The spirit is weakening, or maybe I'm finally learning to control it. Every person I judge, every sin I burn away, I ask myself, is this helping? And the answer is always no. Judgment without mercy, without rehabilitation, without hope, it's just another form of destruction. "So what do we do?" Huey asked. "We can't unring this bell. We can't make people forget what Vought did, what every corporation did. The truth is out there, and it's tearing the world apart." Starlight's phone rang. She answered, listened, and her expression transformed from despair to something that might have been hope. That was Dr. Park. She's a geneticist who worked for Vought but quit when she discovered the human experimentation. She says she's developed something, a way to neutralize Compound V in the human body. Permanently. No more powers, but also no more mutations, no more instability. She can turn soupies back into normal humans. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. A cure. A way out for soupies who never wanted powers in the first place. A solution that didn't involve registration or imprisonment. The extremists won't accept it, warned. Soup supremacists will see it as genocide. Human Liberation Front will demand it be mandatory. We'd just be creating a new conflict. Unless we make it voluntary, Huey said. Free, available to anyone who wants it. No coercion either direction. You want to keep your powers? Fine. You want to give them up? Also fine. Choice. Actual choice. Ghost Rider's flames flickered with something that might have been interest. The spirit would accept this, not as judgment but as justice, giving people the ability to choose their own path, to escape what was done to them without consent. That's not vengeance. That's redemption. Frenchie finally revealed what he'd been working on, a global distribution network. Dr. Park's cure can be synthesized with equipment found in any major hospital. We don't need corporate infrastructure. We don't need government approval. We create the formula, we publish it freely, we make it impossible to suppress or monetize. Within months, it would be available everywhere. Vought would have hated this, Butcher said, and for the first time in weeks he smiled. Free cure for the thing they spent billions creating. Every soupy who wants out, gets out. Every corporation trying to manufacture heroes, their product becomes worthless because people can opt out. Over the next month, they worked with Dr. Park to refine the cure and establish distribution channels. The formula was published online, free for anyone to synthesize. Hospitals and clinics began offering the treatment. And slowly, carefully, soups started coming forward. Some wanted to keep their powers. They'd made peace with what Compound V had done to them, or they genuinely wanted to help people. But others, especially those who'd been experimented on as children, chose to be cured, to be normal, to escape the nightmare that corporations had forced upon them. The cure didn't stop the conflict immediately. Extremists on both sides continued to fight, but it created a middle ground, a third option between human and superhuman, and middle ground, however small, was where peace could grow. Ghost Rider's role changed. Instead of hunting the guilty, he began protecting Dr. Park and the cure's distribution network. The spirit of vengeance found purpose in defense rather than attack, in protecting the innocent rather than burning the guilty. And Johnny Blaze, feeling the spirit's grip weaken as its purpose shifted, began to hope that maybe, someday, he could be free. The boys continued their work, but with a different focus. Instead of exposing corruption, they helped rebuild. Instead of destroying corporations, they supported alternatives. Instead of judgment, they offered restoration. It wasn't perfect. The world remained fractured, dangerous, uncertain. But it was healing, slowly, painfully. In the way that only honest wounds could heal, through confronting truth, accepting responsibility, and choosing to be better. 6 months after Vought Tower burned, Huey stood in Times Square, watching a memorial being unveiled for Compound V's victims. Thousands of names carved in stone, test subjects who'd died, families who'd been destroyed, innocents who'd paid the price for corporate greed. The memorial was Starlight's idea, a way to ensure the world never forgot what had happened. "You think we did the right thing?" Huey asked Butcher, who stood beside him. Butcher was quiet for a long moment, watching people, human and soup, gathering to pay respects. "We did the only thing we could, exposed evil, delivered judgment, offered redemption. Whether it was right? History will decide that. But at least people have a choice now. That's more than they had under Vought." Ghost Rider appeared one last time, his flames almost completely dimmed. Johnny Blaze's human face was visible now, scarred but recognizably alive. The spirit is sleeping, maybe forever. What we did, exposing the truth, offering the cure, giving people choice, that satisfied something in it. Or maybe it just realized that judgment without mercy isn't justice at all. "What will you do now?" Starlight asked. "Try to live," Johnny Blaze said simply. "Try to be human again. And if the spirit wakes, if judgment is needed again, I'll be ready. But I hope it won't be. I hope humanity learns something from all this burning." He walked away, not riding his motorcycle, but walking, just a man trying to find his way in a world he'd helped transform. The boys watched him go, each processing their own role in the revolution they'd started. "We're going to be debated forever," MM said. "Some people will call us heroes, others will call us terrorists, most will probably think we're both." "Good," Frenchie replied. "Certainty is dangerous. Ambiguity forces people to think." They dispersed into the crowd, anonymous again, watching as the world they'd broken tried to rebuild itself into something honest. It wouldn't be easy, it wouldn't be clean, but it would be real. And in a world that had been built on lies for so long, reality, however painful, was revolutionary. The Ghost Rider's arrival in the boys' universe hadn't ended with a final battle or triumphant victory. Instead, it concluded with something more difficult. The hard work of rebuilding after judgment had burned away comfortable lies. Vought International existed only as a cautionary tale now, its assets seized, its leadership dead or imprisoned, its legacy reduced to memorial stones and congressional hearings. But the world it left behind was complicated, messy, and uncertain in ways that simple vengeance could never resolve. Compound V remained. The formula was out there, impossible to erase completely. But Dr. Park's cure existed too, offering choice where there had been only corporate control. Some soups kept their powers and tried to be actual heroes, forming independent teams accountable to communities rather than shareholders. Others chose to be cured, returning to ordinary lives with extraordinary stories. And both choices were valid, both respected, both protected by laws that the boys and their allies had fought to establish. The spirit of vengeance had shown the world what judgment looked like, absolute, terrifying, undeniable. It had exposed sins that polite society wanted to ignore and forced humanity to confront uncomfortable truths about power, corruption, and the cost of manufactured heroism. But Ghost Rider's greatest contribution hadn't been burning the guilty. It had been proving that some things couldn't be hidden behind PR campaigns and corporate lawyers. That truth, however painful, was stronger than any lie. The boys themselves remained active, operating from the shadows, watching for the next corporation that might try to repeat Vaught's sins. The next government that might weaponize human beings. The next comfortable lie that society wanted to believe. They were older now, wearier, carrying scars that would never fully heal. But they were still fighting, still exposing, still refusing to let evil hide in plain sight. And somewhere on America's highways, a man rode a motorcycle that sometimes burned with hellfire and sometimes didn't. Johnny Blaze had learned to live with the spirit of vengeance, to control it, to direct its judgment toward something resembling justice rather than pure destruction. The curse remained, but the man had found purpose within it. The world after Vought wasn't paradise. People still fought, systems still failed, power still corrupted, but it was honest. And honesty, the boys had learned, was the foundation upon which everything else worth building had to stand. Sometimes judgment was necessary, sometimes burning away rot was the only way to heal. But judgment alone wasn't enough. After the fire came the hard work of growing something better in the ashes. That work continued, and would continue, for as long as people chose truth over comfortable lies, redemption over vengeance, and the difficult path of rebuilding over the easy satisfaction of destruction. May the Force be with you. More stories await.